It's Wednesday night, and you know what that means. We're back live on the big mountain.
Hey, good to have you back on the mountain. We took a week off, but here we go again. And man, we're coming in with a doozy. We're coming in hot. We're doing what we like to do and why we started this podcast. We have some picks this evening. Steve has about 4 or 5. I have about 4 or 5. And we're going to start with picks, Steve. And then we want to have a discussion with our viewers about the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. We've done several episodes on this. I know everybody knows our opinion and where we think things are going to end up. But I want to bring in some of Canzano's comments here from last week. He kind of just reiterated a lot of what he's been saying. He just put it in one big post. So I got about 3 different topics that I want to bring up. You and I can talk about them. I want to hear, again, from our viewers. I know JEH, I know Squeezed Money. You know, they're into that West Coast Pac realm. So they know what we think. I want to hear what they think. And we want to say hi to everybody. We see Squeezed Money, Steven, Minnesota Seminoles. Good to have you back here, sir. We've got Genetics. We've got, I think John was at the top. And so, yeah, we are going to go right into the picks. We're actually going to let Steve kind of do his thing, and then we'll catch up on comments after Steve does his pick. So if you guys are going to give him any thumbs downs, we won't see that until after he does all of his picks. Thank you, Steven, for the graphic of the beer mug. That was a producer special that he unleashed. He showed us that about 5 minutes ago, and he said, "Hey, I did something for you guys." So you're going to see as JY's brew goes down. Well, I won't give it away, although I just did. There may be some more to that mug than what you're seeing right now. So anyway, with that, I'm going to take a sip of my mug and let you have at it, Steve.
All right. So I wanted to do this week just some early value picks. Like JY said, the reason we started this show is we wanted to share our Big Ten and our Mountain West picks with people. We, for the last 2 or 3 years, we had been sharing them with each other, texting each other, because we love making picks on college football games. So that's why we started the show. We talk about a lot of different things, but this is our bread and butter. So I have some picks, some early season, off-season value picks for you guys I want to share. And again, some of these are, maybe I just think the line is going to move.
Yeah.
And so that's a good reason to jump on it now. Some of it is, I like the line where it's at now, and I think you should go ahead and jump on it whether it moves or not. So I'm going to be talking about 4 games today. I'm going to be talking about Fresno State at Michigan, traveling to Michigan the first week of the season. I'm going to be talking about Texas at Michigan, Iowa State at Iowa, and Michigan at Ohio State. So start a lot of Michigan on this.
I'm wondering which way you're going to go with these guys.
Yeah, we'll have to see. So
okay.
So again, these are my early season value picks. So let's roll right into the first one. Fresno State at Michigan to start off, and I'm actually going with the Bulldogs plus 20.5.
These Bulldogs?
Those Bulldogs right there. I'm taking all those points. I love the 20.5 points, and here's the thing. Michigan is obviously better than Fresno State. I don't want to hurt your feelings or any of our Bulldog fans' feelings, but they're a better program. They're a better team. But here's the deal. I really like Fresno State this year. Mikey Keene coming back, that experience at quarterback. I think they're going to play well. This is their chance right away to kind of get on that national stage and kind of set the scene. And here's the thing. Michigan, they're coming off a national championship season. They lost their head coach. They lost so many players. I think they tied the record of players drafted to the NFL. I just think it's going to take them a while to get going. It took them a while last year when Harbaugh was suspended at the beginning of the year. They were slow to get going. I predicted that. We rode that train at the beginning of the season until that train turned, basically when Harbaugh came back, made us a lot of money, hopefully made our viewers some money last year. And I'm betting on that same thing to happen this year. Do I think Fresno State comes in and pulls off the upset a la Appy State, in the first game of Big Ten Network? Yeah, probably not, okay? Yep. But I love taking all those points. I love the Bulldogs to come in, play better than expected, and have Michigan just kind of maybe start a little flat, a little slow, and for Fresno State to stay within that margin. So going with the Bulldogs plus 20.5.
And so this is about 2 months out, right, till the game. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you were on this game almost as soon as it came up, wasn't it 21.5 at the very, very beginning?
It's floated between 20.5 and like 22.5.
Okay,
It hasn't
all right.
gone up to over, I don't think, over that 23 margin. It's been in that like between 20 points to 23. It's
Okay.
been right around there. So not a ton of movement in the line,
Right.
maybe a little bit of movement. I'm not picking this because I expect a lot more movement. I think it'll
Right.
stay around there.
Right.
It's the first
You just
game
like
of
the
year.
pick.
I like the pick.
Yeah.
I like the pick, especially there in the first week. Now, I do think some lines will start to change with Michigan after this game.
Okay.
When Fresno puts a scare in them, keeps it. I could see Fresno, maybe a win for Fresno would be possibly keeping it to single digits, where maybe they're just up a touchdown or down a touchdown late, and Michigan, puts one more touchdown,
Right,
and
yeah.
and they win by 14 or something
Right.
like that. And at that point, I think we will see some movement in those Michigan lines, which I'm going to get to next.
Okay. All right.
So my next game I'm going to pick here is Texas at Michigan. Still early in the season, out of conference game. Right now, Texas is the 3.5-point favorite. Okay, this is one where I think there's going to be some movement in the line,
Yeah.
especially after that Fresno game. I think we'll see that line go closer to a touchdown.
Yeah.
Maybe to like a 5.5 or so. So I want to get in early now. Texas at Michigan. I'm taking Texas minus the 3.5 points. And like I said, this is all about where I think the line will move.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that game. Do you have any points on that game?
And that one really surprises me, honestly, with how close the line is right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just really surprised. And I agree with you. I think this line will move as we get into the season. So I think this is definitely a value pick there for Texas. I know they're at Michigan, so I'm sure there's some points there that they're giving up in terms of the way the sports books work. But wow, I'm surprised by that line. I agree. It's definitely going to be a mover.
And this goes back to a theme that we talked about last year. I had some teams where I said I really think Vegas is giving them extra credit
Yes.
for past performance.
Yeah.
I don't really know that Vegas odds makers pay nearly as much attention to college football as they do the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
NFL, NBA, the pro leagues, especially the NFL, that gets most of their attention. I think a lot of these college football lines, it goes kind of more on reputation. So that's going along with that theme of Michigan just kind of getting that little bit of extra credit because they're coming off of a national championship season and maybe not taking into account of how many players they lost.
So I think they're getting extra credit. That's a good point. I think they're getting extra credit for being at home, which they would get anyway, but they're getting extra credit for being at home. And they're getting extra credit for who they were last year. And that was a theme you used a lot with Purdue last year. And you were all over Purdue, especially early on in the season, until kind of the sports book started to catch up. It takes them a while. It's not like, oh, we were wrong once.
Yes.
No, they have their little formula and they stick with it. But you were on the Purdue. So it's almost like maybe Michigan's going to be your Purdue from last year until these odds makers kind of get up to speed on this. Maybe. That's what you're betting on.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
Yeah.
You're on the right track. And I think, and the thing with Purdue, they were coming off of being the Big Ten West champions, being, they're a lower profile team. I think Michigan being high profile, the odds makers will get on that quicker.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody's going to be watching these first two games.
Yeah.
And I really do think when Fresno puts a little bit of a scare in them and keeps it closer, odds makers are going to look at this. So now is a great time to get on the Texas minus 3.5.
I like that pick for sure. Yep.
Okay, so moving to the next game, I've got Iowa State at Iowa. I'm taking Iowa minus 2.5. I think Iowa is the better team. It's at Iowa at Kinnick Stadium, tough place to play.
Yep.
So I think they're better. I think they have better coaching.
Yep.
The big knock on Iowa last year, Iowa won a ton of games. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they ended up winning 10 games, double-digit games.
They just kept winning when they had no offense.
With no offense whatsoever. So
I think that's what you're going to get into.
that's exactly.
Yeah.
They have a new offensive coordinator. I have more faith in him than the Nepo baby last year. That was the offensive coordinator, the son of the coach. I just think their offense is going to be a little bit better. I'm surprised the line is only Iowa minus 2.5.
Agree.
I think this is one that may change. So I like the line where it is. I like the pick, and I think it might change. So I'm jumping all over Iowa minus 2.5 when they host Iowa State. Now, that is a big rivalry game, so people will say, oh, anybody can win it. I get it, but Iowa is the better team. It's at Iowa, and I think even with small improvement to their offense, it just makes all the sense in the world to go with Iowa here.
Well, and we haven't done these are our early very early picks. We haven't done our previews. We haven't set up any of that. That'll be coming here over late July and August timeframes. But I will say, my understanding is Iowa should be as good, if not better, than last year. I mean, I think the expectations are, like you said, on offense, they will take a step forward. It's hard to take a step backward, but so I'm not trying to be too harsh on them. But I do expect them to have a better offense. And I agree with you. I think that, this second and third picks that you gave us here, very good value picks right now where we sit, in the end of June. So
this last one may surprise you a bit. So I'm going all the way to the end of the season, the game, Michigan at Ohio State this year. And so we're in the early season. Why do I need to go all the way to the last game of the year? Well, again, I think there's value in this. Ohio State is the 9.5-point favorite. And some people are probably going to say, especially if there's Michigan fans on there, well, Michigan won the last 3 in a row. Right. They're going to keep on winning. It's a total different situation this year. We already talked about it. Michigan losing their coach, a big percentage of the coaching staff, losing all of those players to the NFL. Ohio State is just loaded. They were able to keep a huge portion of their really good players. They brought in good players in the portal. They brought in good recruits. They were basically able to do this year what Michigan did last year, which is get those really good players to stay an extra year when they could have gone to the NFL. They're absolutely loaded basically at every position. The line is starting right now at OSU minus 9.5, and I think Vegas is definitely looking at this. Vegas, they know Ohio State's going to be really good this year.
Yeah.
And they know that maybe Michigan will take a step back a little bit, but I don't think they have it fully priced in yet. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this now at Ohio State minus 9.5. I could see this game easily going the line as we get through the season and Michigan struggles, which I think they will.
Yeah.
And Ohio State looks like that absolute juggernaut. I could see this line getting bigger and bigger, definitely into double digits, maybe as close as a 12.5 to a 14-point line. So I'm going to go ahead and price it in now, lock it in. Michigan at Ohio State. I'm taking Ohio State. I'm taking the Buckeyes minus 9.5, and I think they will easily. A lot of things can change, but right now I see them easily winning this game by double digits.
Yeah, and again, another pick against Michigan, and taking these early lines against Michigan. And again, the theme here being the odds makers may be giving them too much credit right now, just based on last year and where they're at. And not an overly, it sounds like we're being super critical of Michigan. I think Michigan will be just fine. They're not going to be the daggone national champion again. Right. I think everybody understands that. But they will still have a very solid team. Sure. They'll get plenty of wins. But as we're picking games here, we're looking at spreads, right? We're not necessarily looking at wins or losses. Although I think, you pick 3 favorites, right? You picked the Texas Longhorns, Iowa, and Ohio State here. These 3
took the points with Fresno,
and you took the points with Fresno. But when you look at the favorites, the last 3, and as close as some of these spreads are, you may not get them any better than this. And we're fans of both. Anytime you're at that 2.5, that 6.5, that 9.5, just kind of those normal cutoffs, where you get that 7 to 10 point differential. To me, there's a little extra value in that, Absolutely. And 2 of your picks have that. So I like both of those. I like all 3 of them, but I really like the 2 that you kind of get that extra value with.
And to your point there, Ohio State minus 9.5. That's really why I like that so much. Like you just said, it's just under that 10 threshold.
Yeah.
I think I just see this line going into the double digits. So if you can lock it in now under double digits, this is probably the last time you can lock that in at that lower rate, I think. That's my last pick. Ohio State minus 9.5. Do we want to do some look at some
let's
comments?
Let's go look at our comments here. Oopsie, gotta get on my roller pulley here. All right, so what do we got? We got to go back up here a little bit, Steve. We've got Genetics is waiting for an announcement from FSU. We've got Pac-12 has no future. Well, stay tuned, John. We're going to talk about that. And then, we got Zyler here. I know he's been a commenter several times. Good to have you here, Zyler. David Jurgensen's back on. Love it. He says UM takes down the Horns. Horns buckle under early season pressure.
This is one, David and I have agreed on a lot of things over the offseason. This is one where we disagree. I really just think Texas is coming in confident, the better team. I like what Steve Sarkisian is doing there. And I really think Michigan, again, just like last year, is going to struggle early, especially to score.
Yeah. We got some Fresno sneaky good. We agree. We've got, I think overall, again, we haven't done our previews. We both have them kind of second in the Mountain West here in our preseason as we've been talking. We'll keep going down here. Oh, I like this. John says Iowa's going to beat Iowa State 3-2. Maybe last year.
Maybe.
Let's see what else we got. ISU brings home the Cy-Hawk Trophy. Hawks offense will be dead. Team is losing confidence in my mind. ISU is going to have a darn good year this year. Well, we'll find out.
And I could see Iowa State having a good year in the Big 12. David, we're usually on the same page, but I think we're going to disagree here. I think Iowa has a ton of confidence. What they were able to do last year with their record, the games that they won, and they really feel strongly that they're going to have a better offense this year. So I think they're coming in with a ton of confidence. But anything in that Cy-Hawk game, anything can happen. But yeah. I really like that line. I see it moving more towards Iowa.
Clay Johnson reminds everyone the defense is still there. 99% sure he's talking about Iowa with that one.
Is he, or is he talking about Michigan?
Oh, I would think he's talking about Iowa, but maybe he is talking about Michigan. And then we've got Bill is on, hey dudes, and the chat is on, looking for Noel stuff. So hey, great to have everybody on. Really appreciate the comments. Anything you want to add before I get into my picks?
No, I think some good interaction there, and it's okay, to disagree. Like you said, we're going to get more into picks later. These are just betting lines where I see some value right now, and I think the lines could move, or in a couple cases, just a good pick right now.
Yeah, we got Mad Cat asking about Pac-12. We're going to get to the Pac-12 on the second half of this episode, so stay tuned. Steve gave his picks. JY is going to go into his picks. So here's the summary. I'm going to talk about a couple wins and losses. One I've already taken. Just want to give a quick reminder on that. So we're going to talk Wyoming. We're going to talk SMU, who's moving to the ACC. And we're going to talk Troy. Those are all for over and under wins. And then for games, these are week 0 and week 1 games. We're going to be talking SMU at Nevada, TCU at Stanford, and New Mexico at Arizona. So I do have one on here, TCU at Stanford. That's not a Big Ten or a Mountain West game, but I looked at it and I went, I really like that line. I need to put this out here. So I want to first start just by saying Boise's not on this list. I did take Boise very early on at the over 8.5 wins. Yep. So I'm sticking with my pick there at 8.5. You can't get it at 8.5 anymore. It's moved up to 9.5. I don't like it as much as 9.5. As I've said before, I like them at a 10-win season, but that 8.5 gives you that buffer insurance game if if they have a boo-boo game or an oops game. So I love them at 8.5, and I got them in there. Wyoming, they're still at 6.5. I took them at 6.5 several weeks ago. They're still there. I still like it. Again, I see them at 8-9 wins probably here this year. So a lot of value there, and that's plus 108, I believe it is right now. So you're actually getting really good odds with Wyoming over 6.5 wins. Make sure you get that. So some new ones here for tonight. I got 2 new over-under wins. The first one, SMU. I like them to be over 7.5 wins. They're a great team, super high expectations, and coming into the ACC. Quarterback Stone returns, backup Jennings is back. Jennings played there in the bowl game. Brashard Smith is a transfer that's in from Miami. They have a good overall running back room. They have one of the top tight ends in the nation in RJ Maryland, and they just have a really good O-line. So offensively, you saw how good their offense was last year. It rolls right into this year. So I really love their offense. Defense, again, fantastic last year, maybe even better this year in 2024. We'll see how they stack up against some of the ACC foes. But defensive coordinator Simmons stayed here in Dallas. I just think they have another really good unit here with SMU. There's a lot to like. If you remember, Steve, we pulled up a few weeks ago. I don't remember the top 25 that we used. I don't think it was the on 3. I can't remember who it was. But anyway, we pulled it up. Yeah. We discussed it, and SMU was there sitting
Athlon, maybe?
It may have been Athlons. Yeah. That might be right.
Yeah.
They were sitting there at 25 in the nation. I know there was some give and take, some discussion whether or not they should be or shouldn't be, but I definitely think they're probably a top 30 team, whether or not they break that top 25. I don't know, but I like them early on. So I think this is an easy 8-win, probably 9-win season. And quite frankly, maybe matching their 10-2 from last year. I wouldn't be shocked if that were to happen. So I like them here at over 7.5 wins.
I see them coming in the ACC, and I would not be surprised if they're maybe the 4th or 5th best team in the ACC right away. Behind some teams like Florida State, Clemson, maybe Miami, North Carolina State. Maybe they might be on par with them. We'll see. I like the pick, and I was just going to say, just to remind to our viewers, again, I'm going to make all the Big Ten picks. JY is going to make all the Mountain West picks, but we make other picks as well.
Yes.
JY loves to sprinkle all around the country. I'll sprinkle some Sun Belt and all kinds of different things. And for me, last year I did the extra teams that were going to be moving to the Big Ten, and this year I'm going to go ahead and pick all of Florida State and Clemson's games because I said in our college football 2030 project, I said I see Florida State and probably Clemson being the next 2 additions to the Big Ten. So I'm going to pick all those as well. And if there's any other games that grab our attention every week this season, we will be making picks each week. We'll give you some Big Mountain ice cold locks. And like I said, JY likes to, he'll pick teams from anywhere.
I love picking other G5 schools.
Yeah.
I'll pick some others of the power conferences, but I like going out and picking some more G5 schools. And we'll do a lot of OSU, WSU this year. So we're going to have a lot more picks than we had last year. Because we're kind of pulling some of these schools into the Big Mountain universe of picking. So one team, speaking of the Sun Belt, speaking of a team I like to bet on.
Love the Sun Belt.
The Troy Trojans. Let's get to them. So, of course, massive turnover here on both sides of the ball. I mean, they're coming off a conference title last year, back-to-back conference titles here for the Sun Belt. And so, again, yes, I get there's a ton of turnover, but this is a strong organization. It's a strongly built football team. And their over-under here is 6.5. I just don't see this team being a 500 team this year. That would have them losing an over 6.5. So I'm over 6.5 on these guys. A 6-6 season, again, like I said, I just don't see it. Even with the turnover, I just don't see it. The defense, I mean, they've been known to have the best or one of the best in the Sun Belt for a long time. Yes, there are a lot of starters left. I think they're only bringing 4 back from last year, but they're going to reload, fairly well. They do have some transfers in, Williams from Cincinnati, Perry from Kansas State. So they're bringing some other guys in. The offense does have a big restructuring. They lose pretty much all of their offense. I mean, when you look at their quarterback, Gunnar Watson, who was phenomenal, and their running back, Vidal, I think it is, he was just a crazy good stud. And they're both now in the NFL with teams. So massive shoes to fill. And I'm not expecting them to fill those shoes. That's not the expectations. I'm not saying they're going to win 10 games, but I think they're going to win 7 or maybe 8 games. So I'm fine with them taking a step backwards. So yeah, this is one of those lines where you look at it, you're like, oh, you could see them right there at 6 and 7. I just think they have enough to get to that 7-8 wins this year. They get a decent draw on the other side out of the East. So they're in the West. The Sun Belt still does the East-West divisional thing. So out of the East, which is where JMU and App State are, Troy's going to be getting Coastal Carolina, which is a solid team. That's going to be a hard game. They also get Georgia Southern, which should be a win for them. So maybe split those 2 East games. They travel to South Alabama and to Arkansas State. Those are the games that you're going, okay, are they going to win one of those, lose both of those? You're not 100% sure. I have them winning one and losing one. Just, kind of wash those 2 games if you can. That gets them, in my opinion, to 7 and 5 fairly easily. And as I said, they could push to 8. Also, the Texas State game on October 3rd could really be the battle for the West title in the Sun Belt there. Texas State, I mean, we saw what that offense did last year. They just got to get a defense to kind of catch up and keep them in games. But I'll tell you what, that Texas State offense is fantastic. So that October 3rd game, Texas State versus Troy, could be very interesting for the West title. And to be 6 and 6 here, Steve, to play devil's advocate, they'd have to lose to Texas State, Arkansas State, and South Alabama. I just don't see it. I mean, you need one victory there and you get me my win. And again, like I said, when I'm looking at over-under wins, I like to be like, I like them an easy 1 over and maybe possibly the 2 over, and that's what I'm seeing here with Troy. So I'm more comfortable in my SMU pick. You know, if you said, hey, JY, I only want one of these, I would go SMU of these two, but I also like Troy here. And, you know, maybe I'm just riding the Trojans from last year. I was on them, as you said, with some of those picks, but I like the Trojans here, so I'm going with the over.
Troy's that little program who can win a lot of games.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic Sun Belt team. Fantastic. I got to keep working on my brew here, so I keep up with the logo.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, let's get to some games. I have 3 games to talk about, and we just talked about one of the teams. I'm going to talk about them again. The SMU Mustangs at Nevada Wolfpack. I am taking SMU minus 23.5. This line's just not big enough for me. I am surprised that it's. I mean, I'm Nevada's a Mountain West team. I cheer for my Mountain West. I'll cheer for all of them. I want them to all win. But my goodness, I don't understand this line at all. That SMU offense is really strong. And remember, the last game of the season last year, Wyoming beat Nevada 42-6. It was unbelievable how poorly. Now that's the end of the season. They had only won 2 games. They packed it up. I get all of that. But my goodness, I mean, not to knock on my Cowboys, but to put up 42 points, that they don't do that very often. So I just don't understand this line. I'd have this all the way up to 4 touchdowns. 27.5, the upper 20s. I'd be comfortable taking it there. So I love this 23.5.
And as we get closer to the game, you may see you go up to like 27.5 or something like that. So there could be some good value in that right now.
Yep. So I'm feel bad for the Wolfpack, but I am taking the Mustangs in this one. And honestly, you look at the lines there, minus 112 to minus 111. It's almost 50-50. I mean, it's about as close as it gets. I really like that line. Another one I really like, and this is out of our wheelhouse, but TCU at Stanford. We all know TCU, after a great 2022, fantastic, unbelievable surprising 2022, a letdown last year. But I think they get it much improved. I think they're going to be much improved this year. Stanford, I mean, TCU has so much more talent here than Stanford. The line is 8.5. Again, another one where I'm just loving this line. It's almost, you see these lines that are almost too good to be true, and you think, wow, I should probably not bet that because it seems too good to be true. But I like TCU here, minus 8.5. Again, as I said, way more talent. Hoover's back to become the starter, or he became the starter last year. He's going to be coming back. He showed a lot of improvement. Remember, McAllister, the number 1 wide receiver in Boise, who left mid-year.
Really talented receiver.
Really good receiver is at TCU, and they bring back their number 2 and 3. Yep. They have a stocked wide receiver room there. And Stanford, far cry in talent here. So I'm going with the horny frogs all day, every day.
I like the pick. Here's the thing. Stanford, they've been recruiting well. They have some positive energy going.
They are.
And they're a name. They're just a name that I think, honestly, I think that line, I think it's influenced by, again, They've done with their new coach. They've got some positive momentum going. Some good recruiting going and all that stuff. I think they're getting a little bit of credit for that name. And as we get closer, that's another line that could move. I don't know if it'll cross into the double digits, but I could see it moving a little bit.
Yeah, and again, I'm not knocking Stanford for not improving. I do think they're improving. Right. I agree with that. Yeah. But I think TCU is just a far better team here, much more talented. And offensively, I think they should have their way with Stanford. So I'm happy with this pick, and I'm going to stay with it.
Yeah, and grabbing it before maybe that line does cross over that 10 threshold and get to like a 10.5.
Right.
So if you could get it under 10 right now, 8.5, it could have some good value.
I like it under 10 for sure. Good point. So the SMU Nevada game was week 0, that week 24. The TCU Stanford game is on August 30th, and my last game is on August 31st. Which is New Mexico. I've got to bring up the Lobos, Steve, because you love them so much.
Oh, yeah.
At Arizona. And yes, I know the line is crazy big, 30.5. Oh, my goodness, look how big the line is. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm taking Arizona minus 30.5. I'm sorry. Again, don't really want to crap on a Mountain West team, but we all know what's happening in New Mexico right now. They bring in Bronco Mendenhall, wish him all the best. It's going to take him time to turn the program around. They've had a lot of turnover there. You just look at what's going on in Arizona. The core of this team returns. The core of this team that surprised the nation last year, right? In terms of what the top 25 wins they were getting, and just surprising everybody by the end of the year.
Specifically, their quarterback, who was given
Fafita,
a really good player. A lot of people expected him to go up to was it Washington with the coach?
Yep.
But he stayed there.
Yep.
And he's got a year of experience under him. He could be maybe the most dynamic player at that position in the country this year.
I totally agree, and I don't see New Mexico being able to score hardly any points. I see Arizona being able to score points almost at will here. And honestly, this could be 39.5. I probably wouldn't make it a pick for us, but I'd still like the freaking line because they are going to get, I'm sorry, Lobos, you're going to get smoked. Yep. So those are my 3 early line picks. SMU minus 23.5, TCU minus 8.5, Arizona minus 30.5. I did take off favorites. Because I just think some of the spreads are a little bit under what they should be. That's why I'm taking them.
I like it, and that's the point of these picks. It's not to get deep in the weeds of okay, this team is going to have this season or whatever. It's more where are some value. Where are some value picks where maybe Vegas doesn't have a good good grasp on what the line should be especially early in the season.
Yeah.
And honestly, both of us we picked a lot of these last year, and we made some hay with those picks, both on use, especially with the over/under picks on win totals.
Yeah.
And we gave some good value picks on some lines early in the season. So that's really what we're looking at.
Yeah, let's take a look at our message board here. We've got Boise State, high expectations. Go Wyo, absolutely. Go Wyo. SMU, yes. Steve, David's a Husker fan. He can't pick the Hawks. So
right.
Rightfully so.
Totally get it. And that's there's emotion to that. And what we try and do as far as the betting picks. I mean, I'm a Penn State fan, so I'm emotional when it comes to Penn State. I want them to win every game. But what we try and do is take emotion out, look at things strictly by the numbers, and give you some good value picks if you're going to be making some bets. If you're not making any bets, oh well, then don't worry about it. But if you want to make some money, you want to get some value on these picks, just consider them. Take a look.
John says SMU will play in the ACC championship game. I don't think that's too far-fetched. Tyler Nelson says JY and Steve need to follow up with that college football guy ideas for videos. Yes, he does some awesome videos, and I think now's the time we're allowed to say this. We haven't said it before. We just did a really cool, what do you call it? Draft. Fantasy, I don't know. Draft.
It's a Super League. We did a 64-team Super League draft, and who were our other two drafters?
So we had that college football guy, Bill, and we had Steven, who's one of our, he's been a long-time mountain dweller. Mm-hmm. He's on here this evening. It was a lot of fun. We did that draft. It's going to be a long episode.
Yes.
Long episode. But we'll get that out here shortly. We're going to have somebody do some TV valuations or media valuations on that. We got to record that over the weekend.
Definitely. Check out the video when it comes out. I think both Steven and Bill did a great job. Again, we took a look at this as, if somebody, the Congress got involved, NCAA got involved and said, hey, we're going to do one big Super League, 64 teams. We're going to split it up into 4 regional conferences because we want to keep some of that regionality in. So the 4 of us picked those teams. We did it like a fantasy draft. There were some twists and turns, some unexpected things. There's some picks I couldn't believe them when they were happening. So I want you guys to check them out. Give us your feedback. I'm really surprised in some ways it turned out exactly like I thought it would.
Right.
In other ways, it went totally out into left field at different times. So make sure you check that out. It was a lot of fun doing that with that college football guy and Steven. What's Steven's page? It's Bobcat Corner.
Bobcat Corner.
Yeah.
Yep. So Genetics dropping some stuff here on Clemson, saying that he had a conversation with a person that manages IPTAY. What's that? IPTAY.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, IPTAY. And that person sits on a meeting inside of Clemson. He said that the Clemson's focus is on the Big Ten, not the ACC. He also says that FSU would not even accept an SEC offer if it came. Hello.
Yeah, I've been hearing more and more. I know genetics has shared different things. I've been hearing more and more that Clemson really sees their next evolution as being a national program, and not so much a regional program. So that kind of jives with what he's saying. I'm thinking maybe that IPT is maybe it's intellectual property or TV rights, something in that field.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, something.
Steven says he keeps forgetting how Troy has been lately. Troy has been incredibly good the past 2 years. Won't be as good this year, but still a solid, again, like I said, a solid program. Steven says Nevada is just like New Mexico, rebuilding. Yep, almost from scratch. Unfortunately for Nevada, they've been rebuilding ever since they pretty much lost everybody. Their coach and their starters who are all up and left to CSU, and now they just fired their coach again. I mean, they can't even keep a coach, let alone players.
Well,
I feel bad for them.
Last year, I think their beat writer, like their main beat writer, suggested they just closed the program, shut it down.
Yes. Stanford is like Jekyll and Hyde team, was down 28 to Colorado at half, then came back to destroy Colorado. Yeah, that whole Colorado thing last year, to me, I just put no stock into it. They were such a silly team with the way they played. Now, they did have injuries there and stuff at the end, but I don't know. I couldn't get a read on Colorado last year at all. What else we got? If the Cards beat the Frogs could have a long year. Yeah, they would. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm going TCU. Utah will win the Big 12. I pretty much agree with that. I think Utah they are ready for a fantastic season in the Big 12. I'd love to see that happen. Time will tell.
And I'll give you a little preview here. We're going to be doing over the next month or so. We're going to be coming out with a bunch of different episodes. One of them is going to be our picks for the college football playoff. And I don't know if this is necessarily a spoiler, but I'm going to make a guess that both of us are going to have Utah. Just a guess that both of us are going to have Utah winning the Big 12 and getting that automatic berth to the college football playoff.
Yeah. And so Steven asks, which TCU is more likely to show up in 2024? The 22 TCU or the 23 TCU? I think they're more like the 22. They're not going to be the 22 TCU, but I think they're going to be more like the 22 TCU than they were last year. So I'm hedging more towards that type of team than what they were last year.
I think TCU is just kind of one of those programs that it's going to kind of do this, and when they have their up peaks, they can compete with anybody in the country. And I agree. I think this year they might be closer. 2022 was obviously their highest peak in a long time, and I agree they might be closer to that than a bottom peak.
Yeah. So IPTA is it's NIL stuff. I pay $10 a year for Clemson. Clemson's fundraising. Okay. So we're just learning about some of this Clemson and FSU stuff. Where that is not our forte, but we have learned a lot over the past 6 months as we've been diving into this. So with that, we are all caught up. Do we want to go into the PAC?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I got 3 things I want to talk about, and I want to talk with our viewers on this. Again, I think a lot of them know where we stand. I want to have more of an open discussion about this. Maybe tell us some things we're not thinking of, all that kind of stuff. And I want to go over, again, like I said, some of the Canzano comments that he just kind of summarized last week in one of his posts. And again, this is not to hate on him whatsoever, but I do feel like he likes to spin just about any quote to the favor of the Pac-12. And I'm not hating on the Pac-12, but it's like when I read the quote, I'm like, oh, he took that totally differently than the way I read that quote. and it's spun to the favor of the Pac-12, which is fine. So here are the 3 things I mainly want to talk about, and I have some items I want to put up on the screen, Steve. And we've talked about these things before, but it's been a little while, and I just want to kind of bring it back together for our discussion. So the first one is the poaching penalty. The second one is this war chest. And then the third one is kind of what's the right number for a PAC rebuild if they were to do one. Yeah. Those are the 3 things I want to talk about.
Can we bring that up on our screen as well?
Yes. Give me 1 sec.
Okay.
Boop, 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 boop. Okay. So the first one is the poaching penalty. So the poaching penalty is what was put into the scheduling agreement with the Mountain West. So this is poaching Mountain West teams. And it lays out the amount per team. So, 1 is $10 million, 2 The second team is $10.5 million, and it goes up and up and up and up from there. If you take Team 11 to get Team 11, it's $15 million. Yep. So we've gone over that. I don't want to go over that in detail, but we do have it there. I apologize. It's a bit blurry. That's what I was able to, what do you call that? Snip? Yeah. Snip. So I apologize for the blurriness of this, but there she is. And just as a reminder here, the resignation for any Mountain West team is due June 30th for the next year, right? So you know, if anybody would want to leave June 30th of 25, they would have to resign by June 30th of 24 to give what they call a timely notice. The timely notice is 3 times the member distribution payment for the preceding year. If it's untimely, meaning less than that year, you do it after June 30th and you're leaving the next June 30th, it's double the timely notice. So what you're seeing here is the poaching penalty the PAC would have to pay to the Mountain West.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Yes, this is what the PAC would have to pay to the Mountain West for poaching, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? On top of that, the school has to pay an exit fee, and they do call it an exit fee. And as I said, for a timely notice, which I would assume everybody would give a timely notice, for crying out loud, there's no need to not do that. For a timely notice, in 2023, the total distributions were about $5 million for the year. This was per Nevada's distribution sheet. Okay, everybody's is a little bit different. We all know Boise gets that 1.5 or 1.8 million more because, you know, they're Boise. But anyway, so if you take that times 3, that's about $15 to $16 million per school to leave the conference. So if the PAC were to take a school, I'm just going to use one school, the PAC would have to pay $10 million to the Mountain West, and the school would have to pay $15 million to the Mountain West for that one school to leave. All right, now the monies are coming from 2 different areas, but that's a chunk of freaking change. Yes. $25 million for one school. Let's go to 4 schools, just as an example. Yep. Again, here you'll see 4 schools is $43 million. $43 million from the PAC, right? Right. Then you've got 4 schools paying the $15 million, which is another $60 million from the 4 schools. Yep. Over $100 million. There's over $100 million to go to the Mountain West if the PAC says we're going to poach 4 schools. That's a ton of money, Steve.
It is. And again, and this goes back to, and I know you have more to talk about.
I have more. I just wanted to lay out the costs of leaving, right? If it's not all, this is, you know, all, everything under 12, from 11 down, this is what we're talking about.
And when you see those numbers, it's such a stark reminder. And here's the thing, and this is why I've been saying all along, okay, could I see a scenario where if the PAC was able to put together a conference and maybe take 1 or 2, because we talked about San Diego State.
Yes.
Let's say they just go for San Diego State. Okay, they can. That's not a crazy amount of money. But the crazy scenario, and what I keep seeing, is taking 4 or 5.
Yes.
You get the least return on your investment there. If you're going to take 4 or 5 teams and pay $60 million,
right?
It makes almost no sense. It makes more sense to just go ahead and merge together and just take the whole kit and caboodle. So correct. It's like you just go for 1 or 2, or you just merge all together and take the whole darn thing. The absolute crazy dumbest scenario is to take that 4 or 5 teams, and I keep seeing people suggest that.
I know,
and it's like, and I know you're going to get to this. Where do you get the money?
Yes.
How do you get $50 or $60 million to poach just 4 or 5 teams?
So let's get to the war chest discussion next. That's the second item I want to talk about, because it kind of goes into that, and then I want to get to our commenters. So we're not ignoring our commenters. Right. We're gonna get to you guys here just in a little bit, but I want to get to the war chest piece. This was done by TJ Altimore. He put this up on X a little while back, and it is not the end all be all. It's a high level just to give you an idea of what this might look like. But again, I think it puts it in pretty good perspective. You can onesie twosie this, and this was before there was a Pac-12 media agreement that we now know that they have. And so it was before some of this. But I think it's important for us to take a look at this guy again. Fortunately, this guy's a little clearer for everybody. But on the left, you'll see kind of the monies that are coming in. You know, they get that money from the departing 10 schools. And I'll get to that $65 million settlement amount that they're going to be getting from the departing 10. You'll see the Rose Bowl payouts for the final 2 years of that contract. You'll see CFP payments. You'll see NCAA unit payments. And then the known, if you add them all up, the known revenue is this that blue bar, $222 million. As I said, when he did this, he didn't know what the CW media right was going to be exactly. Here he's got, $18 million, which I think that's high, right? I should have written down what they ended up with for their media rights, but that seems high to me, but I don't remember. Anyway, we'll just go with what he's got here. So then you move, there's all your money. You add that 18 to the 222, you're at 240. Right, that's where we're at. We have $240 million with the settlement money, with this war chest that they're hoarding all of this money, and they have all this money to rebuild the PAC X, Y, and Z. So let's go to the expenses. First, you've got the Mountain West contract for the scheduling agreement. We already know that. We talked about what that is. You got to pay for that. Next, you've got your conference and network operating costs. Again, massive basic estimate. We've done episodes on what the Pac-12 network is kind of moving to. So I'm sure that number here that you're seeing is probably a little bit high given where they're going with the production arm only type of deal. And, they've hired a new president, CEO, person to run it, who's going to obviously try to make that sucker make money. So again, you got to take that one with a bit of a grain of salt for now. They have some other known liabilities. And then the big one here, the payout to the schools if they, never left, or if they're near PAC levels. Now, I will say we know, and we have seen OSU and WSU talking about the cuts that they're going to need to make. They don't want to make big headlines with that because, as you like to say, Steve, they need to maintain this idea from both a coaching standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, from a donor standpoint, an athlete standpoint, that they're still a power team. Yep. And if they want a power invite, they have to look like they're funding their programs at a power conference level. So I put on X just the other day, there's a double-edged sword here that they have to find a happy medium between our revenues are reducing, so we have to cut costs. But we can't cut costs so much that it looks like we're no longer a Power 2, or we're not willing to fund our programs at the Power 2, because then we're completely just saying, hey, we're admitting defeat. They've admitted defeat by that, and they haven't done that yet. So by no means, PAC fans, Beavs and Cougs fans, I'm not saying you've admitted defeat, but I'm saying that's kind of that happy medium. That's the balancing act that they have to play right now. So again, on the chart, that number can fluctuate. We don't know what that's going to look like exactly. We don't know how far their cuts are going to go. But if they maintain those levels on the far right, $7 million is left over, Steve. That doesn't even pay for one school from the Mountain West, right? So again, a bit exaggerated, a bit high level, but I think it's really important to remember that as we're talking about some of this. And this isn't me trying to crap on the PAC or defend the Mountain West. It's trying to lay out the actual picture of where things are at for these schools right now, or where the PAC is. Forget these schools, where the PAC is at right now.
Right.
Thoughts, Steve? Thoughts?
So, well, first of all, I want to look at a couple things. You talked about them already, but I talked
a lot right there.
You did, but yeah. So I want to further expand on a couple of those things. If we could bring that big chart back up to full size again.
Here, you want to see mine?
Yeah.
Mine's not that big.
Yeah, let's see if we can. I think for our
producer, he'll pop her up there for us on our screen.
So, and you mentioned these. So I just want to talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because there's been some new things. The Pac-12 network I saw is going dark. I think at the end of this week, or maybe at the end of June.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's probably not going to end up costing $50 million or whatever to operate.
Yes.
And with only two programs, they're kind of going to a skeleton operations with the conference. So there probably is some savings there. And I'm just doing this for the people that are going to say, oh, well, it's not going to cost that much.
Sure.
And like you mentioned, the payouts. This is assuming they keep the same payouts.
Right.
There's a very good chance that they're gonna tighten the belts a little bit, not take those full payouts to maybe save some money. But still, is there $50 or $60 million of savings there that it would take to get 4 or 5 teams? That would be really, really rough and would leave them basically scraping the bottom of the barrel again with no long-term media deal. And I don't want to crap on the remaining pack. And thank you, producer. We can take that back down. I just wanted to have it a little bigger on there to focus on those 2 areas.
Us 40-year-olds.
Yes,
can't
exactly.
Crap
Yeah,
anymore.
my old man eyes. But anyways, I wanted to highlight that, not to crap on the pack, because as I've said, I am a Beaver believer.
Yeah.
And I'm rooting for the Cougs as well. To me, the financial aspect just illustrates, to me, there's 2 choices here. Or I don't even know if they're choices. There's 2 possible potential paths or outcomes. One is that they do get some kind of a Power 4 invite, and that may happen.
Sure.
The ACC, if they lose it, maybe they try and keep make a West Coast division, like some people have mentioned. It's a possibility.
Right.
Maybe the Big 12 goes up there and takes them. It's a possibility. I don't see the SEC or the Big 10. Big 10 could have had them with Oregon and Washington if they wanted to. I don't see that happening. But could they get into the ACC or the Big 12? It's definite possibility. We have not seen any indications that that's imminent, because again, either one of those conferences could have invited them already, other than just kind of some hopeful thoughts by some people. We've never really seen any evidence that either one of those conferences are considering adding those 2. And really, some of the comments from the decision makers at Oregon State and Washington State, they definitely want to look at those power conference options, but they've also talked about regionality.
Right.
And that would be tough, playing Central Florida every year, playing Lake Forest every, whatever. So to me, that is an option. It's a potential path, probably a little bit less likely. And the other option, I just don't see poaching 4 or 5 Mountain West teams as an option. And if you only go in and take one, even to get to 8 teams, you still got to go and find 5 more teams, trying to steal out of Texas or wherever. I just see that as a really rough road. And again, we've seen no real evidence that the PAC is making an effort to rebuild.
Right.
So to me, it just goes back to the logical conclusion where if you just take all of the teams, so whether it's the whole Mountain West going into the PAC, whether it's the PAC just being absorbed by the Mountain West, or by them merging and forming a new entity, I don't care. As I said before, that just seems like the most logical conclusion and the most logical outcome. And the least likely thing to me, based on those numbers, is to poach 4 or 5 teams. But yet we keep hearing that over and over and over again. I keep seeing these suggestions by fans and by writers who are basically fans who write about that say, that they see the PAC poaching 4 or 5 teams. And okay, where are you getting that $50 or $60 million? And the thing is Oregon State, Washington State, and Mountain West, they went into this arrangement with eyes wide open.
Yes.
The Mountain West said, hey, we'll do this with you, but these are the protections. And Oregon State and Washington said, okay, that makes sense.
They kind of had to.
Yeah. I mean, they could have tried to go independent, whatever.
Yeah.
But they agreed to it. They knew what the it's not like this was snuck in and they didn't know.
Right. Oh, right.
This.
For sure.
They were totally aware.
Yeah.
So they had to factor that into their calculus. So when you look at the war chest, when you look at the cost that was put in there, that both sides were perfectly aware of, I just don't see a path where you rebuild the PAC by taking a handful of Mountain West teams. It just doesn't make any logical financial sense to me when I look at the numbers.
Well, and the reason everybody talks about it is like our friend Matt Kelly says, because it's fun. Mm-hmm. It's fun to speculate. It's fun to pick the 4, whatever you want to call them, most likely to leave, best, top, best brands, whatever. You just speculate on whatever you want because it's fun and it gets people to click on it. So that's what people do. So that's our buddy Matt Kelly, and I got to give a shout out to Matt Kelly as well because he was the one that kind of turned me on to this new Canzano stuff and just said, hey, maybe something you want to look at. And I'm like, oh, this sounds good. Let's do this for the live cast. And we are. I also want to give a shout out to that college football guy again, because he's been talking about this on his show several times. I know he referenced a few of our episodes and a few of these things. So I want to thank him for referencing our show. And if you're interested in some of his thoughts on this, he's done a couple episodes about this right now, kind of in the same vein of what we're talking about right now. So.
And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't just make a point of crediting Tony Altimore at TJ Altimore again.
Right.
You mentioned his name at the very beginning.
Yep.
Does fantastic work. I think he's former military, if I remember correctly, or maybe CIA or something. Either intelligence or military. Has a finance, but the dude is the wizard of making charts. If you are a sports fan, if you're a college sports fan, you have got to be following at TJ Altimore, because his charts, they put it in a way that anybody can consume that information and understand it.
I've seen some people throw some shade at him. It's like, again, as I said, this chart isn't the end all be all.
Right.
Things have changed since he's made it.
Yes.
But he's trying to put it out there in an easy to understand, easy to read, fairly high level, but it makes complete sense. I mean, if you want to get into more details, you shouldn't be on X. You should be someplace else doing your research. So,
and he explains his assumptions on there. He's
For
saying
sure,
this
yes.
is the number with this assumption.
Right, yeah.
Well, if that assumption isn't correct, obviously the number is going to be different. But it's a great way to look at something, get a visual, and kind of have a better understanding.
So we're going to jump to our commenters. Before I do that, I just want to say, on that chart, it had the 65 million being on the very left of that chart, right? Now, Teresa Gould, the new commissioner, has said, I think several times, and Canzano reported this, that the $65 million settlement is to be set aside for a possible rebuild or some sort of realignment, and there's all kinds of things that money could be used for. Okay, well, if it's set aside, Steve, then in terms of TJ Altimore's spreadsheet that he gave, he's using that just to kind of get back to break even. If they're going to set that aside, then you got to chop that off of his chart. And again, this isn't throwing shade at his chart. Yeah. He's just including it.
Right.
But she's saying that's set off to the side. Okay, well then we'll have to cut 15 million out of the network, and we're going to have to cut 25 million from each school in order to get back to break even. So if it's truly set aside, it's even worse than what he's showing on this. And I have said, I think that is, I get why they're saying that and what they want it to be used for. In my opinion, what it's actually going to be used for is bridge money to get them over these next few years to, again, whether or not they can actually fund themselves to look and stay a Power 2 over the next 2 years in hope of an invite, that's what that money can be used for. Yep. If not, it's just bridge money at that point. So, I think...
I like building bridges.
I had to say bridge because it's your thing. So let's get to our commenters. We have spoken a lot. Oh, David Jurgensen is all over it. Let's get to him first because it's big and bright and orange.
Yeah.
He says, just wanting to help support the Big Mountain crew with the House settlement, supposedly, with mostly NCAA basketball money being used. Don't know the real value of the PAC name. Maybe just stick with the Mountain West brand. David, I got to be honest with you. You kind of are taking some of the words out of my mouth, depending on who you hear. And Canzano talks about some of this in his, I wasn't going to get into this, but David, you gave us a super chat, and so we're going to get into it right now.
Yeah.
He had one Mountain West, I think it was an AD source, a Mountain West source saying, oh, the PAC brand's what we want. There's value in that brand or in that name, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm going, that's probably San Diego State. I don't know if it is or not, but I throw a little shade at the Aztecs on that one. But then you have other schools that, when you look at this agreement, and again, I go back to this poaching fee, that is very strong in that the Mountain West wants to either stay together in total or it's everybody. I mean, I have said this before, they are super united. And I think, David, I get it. You're going to get a lot of people that just says the PAC name is the brand you want to go forward with. Okay, to me, that PAC name right now, Steve, is super tarnished. It's a very tarnished brand. I mean, it's the Power Conference that blew up, for crying out loud. Okay, can they bring it back? Yes, but why do 12 schools in the Mountain West want to bring back a name of a brand that they had nothing to do with. I don't know. I struggle with that a little bit. That might be my purple colored glasses speaking to that, but I agree with David here. Just stick, again, you don't care about the name, but it's about branding. I'm not worried about the name. I am worried about branding.
Yeah, and so I think I think that right now it's that war of words we talked about, trying to kind of posture.
Yeah.
And okay, we're the stronger brand. We're the stronger brand. We don't need you. You need us. And both sides are kind of doing this. Not really the decision makers, but the fans, the writers, the whatever are kind of doing this. I think that'll end up kind of being irrelevant. Not necessarily irrelevant, but I think that once they decide to come together, they're going to turn their sights to not necessarily like trying to posture against each other. Hey, we're going to come together. Let's have some lawyers, some marketing people, some TV people, some brand marketing people come in and tell us what's best, and they'll figure out. And maybe that's the Mountain West brand. Maybe that's the Pac brand. Maybe that's a new name, a new branding, a completely new branding.
Right.
Because we're in such a big transition phase to the next kind of phase of college football. Can we go back up to David's comments?
Sorry.
Again,
Yep.
There was something.
The NCAA basketball money. Yes,
Yeah.
That's another thing that college football guy has talked a lot about recently. And I'm going to get into that on our third item as well. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, and it is so. The thing is we talked about this on another episode, and conferences like the Mountain West, who maybe overperformed. They put a lot of teams in the tournament.
Yes.
And some other the Big East really is the team that the conference that totally got screwed.
Yep.
It's such a weird way to go about the settlement as far as paying the money based on how much money they made in NCAA basketball, when I think 80 to 90% of revenue comes from football. So there's definitely some conferences that are going to have to pay an over proportionate amount based on their basketball success than what they've really brought in football. So that I think that will come into play with a potential merged Mountain West Pac conference.
Yes.
I think that'll be a big, because the Pac made a lot of money, which we were like, oh, that's great. They're making all this revenue from the basketball tournament. Well, now the amount that they're going to have to pay back is going to be determined by that. So It was great when they were getting that revenue, but now they may be on the hook for some of that revenue. So.
And the Mountain West, they took 6 teams to the dance. I know they didn't do as great as I was hoping they would, but they took 6 teams to the dance this year. I believe it was 4 the year before. And Bill, the college football guy, he gave the number of the past, I think it was 5 years. It's a lot of teams. There's a lot of units to be paid out to the Mountain West as well. And again, I'm going to get to more of that as we talk my third item here in terms of number of teams. The other thing I just want to mention with David, we again really appreciate your super chat. We're going to do a special episode with a guest on the House settlement. We've kind of been putting this off. We tried to get one guest. He ghosted me.
Yeah.
He responded and then he ghosted me on X, but that's okay. We got another person set up. We're going to record that hopefully on Sunday. So this next week, we're hoping to get out a really cool episode on the House settlement. Not so much the details of the settlement. I think that's been well reported, but maybe the fallout of the settlement and what might be coming down the road and some of the issues the settlement may have. So, hey, be on the lookout for that. We are looking to do that one as well. So let's keep going. Bill, yes. I appreciate this comment. No way the Board of Regents for OSU WSU will agree to give up their war chest to buy Mountain West schools. Completely agree with that. Why would you give that money to the Mountain West when it's money you could potentially use for your operating budgets? That's kind of what we just talked about. I'm not sure when he put that comment in here. I totally agree with you, Bill. Very well said, very well stated. Genetics taking a handful of Mountain West teams into the Pac makes 0 sense to me. You're still G5. Why not just join the Mountain West? Still G5. Agreed. You're giving up money. Again, the options, as you said them, they're either to get the invite to a P conference, Big 12 or ACC, or you're going to be doing something with we think,
joining or merging,
the Mountain West.
Joining the Mountain West.
Exactly.
The Mountain West,
so what else do we got here? JEH, it doesn't matter if you will be considered as P5 teams for the House lawsuit. Yes, they will. And then another one that I'll talk about, I wanted to talk about, I actually don't know if I wrote it down, but But Bill brings up the 9 out of 12 teams need to vote to dissolve the Mountain West. So it is 3/4 would have to vote to dissolve. Again, I just, the revenue, I get the revenue, and I'm going to get into some of this. For the Mountain West, everybody go, oh, they have a low media value, blah, blah, blah. They're going to get a new one. It's going to go up. I don't know how much it's going to go up. It's going to get better. I think the thing the Mountain West is going to need to decide whether or not they're going to stay with even revenue distribution, with one exception, Boise State, or if they're not, because you're seeing that kind of rear its head, especially from San Diego State, who's saying, guys, we're bringing in gobs of, we made it to the daggone final a year ago in basketball, and that money just goes into the pot and it's distributed to everybody. But, you know, if Boise wants to be the front runner and kind of the namesake on the football side, we've certainly proven that we're the namesake on the basketball side. Figure out if we're going to be strictly even, or if, you know, revenue shares, or we're not going to be even revenue shares. And I think that's probably some of the saltiness that San Diego State has had. And frankly, it's only becoming saltier now that they made a freaking national title run to the championship game. And I got to be honest with you, they've got beef there. I think they've got beef there. They're bringing in gobs of money for the conference, and it's getting, the basketball money is getting distributed evenly. So it's either, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You got to figure this out, Mountain West. I agree. I'm with San Diego State on that. Let's keep going here. So genetics. Hey, a T. Altimore chart. He got counseling work and hasn't been on X much lately as a result. Consulting, not counseling.
Yeah, consulting.
When I said that, I went, oh, what's wrong with him? No, consulting work. You can see, Steve, my apple juice may be getting to me. The PAC needs a credible long-term media deal in place. I don't think the CW by itself will be enough long-term. Time will tell. I'm on the ups of the CW. I'll be honest with you. For whoever. If the Mountain West got the CW, I'd be all right with it.
I watched some games last year. I enjoyed it. It's just people don't think of the CW as a traditional sports channel, but they're trying to change that. So
yeah. Go ahead. Yep.
Well, why don't you read Tyler Nelson's comment, and then I want to respond to that.
What's going to happen when we get to 2030? How does media deal change? How does the media deal change when people? When people are cutting the cord to cable and satellite television. My wife was just talking about that with me today. We have to lower the damn cable bill. I'm like, I got to get my live sports.
Yes. So here's the thing. I think we're already seeing the beginnings of that transition. And yes, when we get 5-6 years from now, we're going to be farther down the road. So here's the thing. So you have NBC, Peacock. Their streaming platform is Peacock. They're already moving some Notre Dame games and some Big Ten games to Peacock.
Yeah.
The NFL, and I know we're talking college football, but the NFL moved some games to Peacock and other different
What the hell are they on now on, what is it, Thursday Night Football is on freaking
Amazon,
YouTube or something.
I think, or YouTube.
Amazon, I don't know, it's on
Amazon.
something.
The CBS is putting some games on Paramount Plus, and I think that's the thing is I don't think there's going to be a switch one day because we've already. I mean, cable has been hemorrhaging subscriptions for over a decade. We're already seeing that transition, and they're starting to move more and more of those media packages. You know, the over-the-air is like, you know, the CBS, NBC, Fox, ABC. The over-the-air channels are still getting massive ratings, but you're seeing those media companies move more and more of the rest of their package from traditional cable channels to more of their streaming platform, and I think they're just going to keep on accelerating that. And I could see a scenario where we get to 2030 where, you know, you're going to have, ABC has their one or two big games on the over-the-air platform channel, and if you want to see the rest of the Big Ten slate or the, SEC slate or whatever, you're going to have to get ESPN Plus, you're going to have Paramount, you're going to have Peacock, whatever.
The companies are forcing it.
Yes.
They're going to force you to do it.
They're going to, yes.
If you want to see the games.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Tyler, great point, and I think we're already starting to see what they're doing, and that's just going to accelerate as we go forward.
So Squeeze Money and JEH kind of have similar comments here in terms of media deals. Squeeze Money says unless the PAC can somehow get a better media rights deal than the Mountain West or ACC, no teams from those conferences are going to leave. JEH says, I think pulling from the ACC won't work as their media deal is $6.9 million, and the PAC's media deal would have to be about double that, and that's not likely. I agree with both of you guys. John Hawks says the same thing. He agrees with them. There's just, is there a difference? Yeah, there's a slight difference. But you would have to pay. I'm going to get into this now, Steve. I have to get into this now.
Okay.
If I may. Go ahead.
I want one more comment.
You go one more comment. All right.
Okay, so Michael Smith says Calford could basically come back, sign a media distribution deal with their tech buddies. And
sorry.
Oh,
Where did I go? I went too far. Sorry.
No, it's all
there
good.
It is. There it is.
Okay. Yeah, that they could come back and basically buy the Mountain West and come out with their own media deal and all that stuff. I think they could if they wanted to, but here's the thing. Especially Stanford. Stanford's got money, they have the connections or whatever. But do they want to do that? They've kind of put their chips all in with the ACC. To them, they want to stay in a power conference. They've said they don't want to play in a conference with the Mountain West teams, or maybe even with Oregon State and Washington State. So they've said that's not what they want to do. They want to be in the ACC. So they could probably do something like that, but I don't see them doing that. I really think, to me, it's the Mountain West and the remaining two PAC. Their futures are intertwined.
JEH, unless the Mountain West has votes to dissolve, which is not likely, he thinks there's a merger. I agree. I will be shocked. I will fall off my chair on a live broadcast if the Mountain West. What was the dirty sock thing I said earlier?
You would eat a dirty sock.
Something with the Aztecs.
Yeah.
Crap. I'll eat another dirty sock. I just don't think they're gonna dissolve. There's absolutely nothing out there that makes you want to think that the Mountain West is gonna have 9 schools that vote to dissolve this conference. I don't see it. I don't think it happens. Mr. Ed, hello. Been a while. Good to have you back on as well, sir.
I think we had another super chat comment.
Yeah, we go down here. Boop, boop. P5 is stuck for 40% of settlement. Large amount divided among small number of schools. I agree.
Yeah.
I hate the settlement.
Yeah.
We said it at the time.
Yeah. And again, there are certain conferences, there are certain schools, and that was David Jorgensen again, our super fan with a super chat there. The settlement is rough, and I think we just saw one of the smallest FBS teams. I forget the name of them. Down in Texas.
Yeah,
I think.
I'll have it. I'll have it for our.
Okay.
They're the first one. Well, they were a. There's a word for that. Not a lawsuit. They were a. I don't want to say they have an objector. They're an objector.
Maybe
yes.
they were looking to file an amicus brief or something.
A writ of mandamus.
No, well, yeah.
Okay.
No. I think the smaller schools, the G5s, and especially there's some schools that are going to be hit harder by this than others.
Yes.
It's just kind of a weird settlement. And I think especially the Power 2 basically kind of pushed this through to get it done because they want to use this settlement to do some other things that they want to do.
Yeah.
And basically they're telling everybody else, you eat this crab sandwich or we're going to leave and go away.
Well, let's get to the last thing real quick I want to talk about, and that is, what's the right number? So we mentioned Scott Barnes, who's the AD for Oregon State, said that 8 is a good number because it keeps you nimble, right? Other people have said you want to be, especially if you're not a power conference, you want to have as many teams as you can, be as big as you can, because there's strength in numbers. Does that get you more media rights deals because you have more schools, you have more brand power, you're in more cities or in locations? To me, I would think if you're the smaller conferences, if you're the G, what we know as the G conferences, I would think bigger is better right now. You get more name recognition. And again, as I said, the NCAA tournament money is really, really important. But let's just guesstimate this. So the media values for a rebuilt PAC right now, again, this is coming from a source of Canzano, is $7 to $10 million. That's what they're guesstimating. When you take 4 or 5 schools from the Mountain West, you got Oregon State and Washington State, and they had a couple other schools from the AAC and blah, 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 blah. But it's $7 to $10 million, and it gets back to the one I wanted to get this to. Who had said this? It was JEH and Squeeze Money, where they were just saying the media value better be substantially higher for anybody to leave, and it's not gonna be, and it isn't now, and it's not gonna be in the future because they're the same schools getting that media value now in the conferences that they're in. So I want to take this all the way back to the beginning, Steve, and just say, why would a team leave? I'm gonna go back to the Mountain West. Why would, I'll say Boise State. No, that's not Boise State because they get that extra money. Let's say Fresno State. Why would, or San Diego State because they wanted to leave. Why would the Aztecs leave? One school leave to pay $15 million of an exit fee to make what? Maybe 3 or 4 million more a year after, and who knows what the new Mountain West media rights deal is going to look like. So I'm going to say let's just say $3 million more a year. It'll take you 5 years just for the media value to recoup the exit fee that you paid to the Mountain West. So unless you're sitting on a nest egg of $15 million that you just want to pay to the Mountain West so that you can go to another, quite frankly, group conference. Sorry, Beavs and Cougs fans, but that's what you're going to do. I don't get it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And again, it gets back to, I wanted to get to this last, and Squeeze Money and JEH basically took my third point right out of my mouth. The numbers don't add up for me.
That's the whole thing comes down to the numbers. People eventually will move past the emotion. There's so much emotion of, okay, I'm a Pac fan and I want the Pac to still be the Conference of Champions, to still be there. Or there's emotion in the Mountain West. No, where the Mountain West, we talked to what is his name? The great Wyoming
I'm on tilt because of some of the comments.
Okay.
They're taking you up are you talking about Jim?
Yes, Jim.
Sorry,
yes.
Jim.
There's emotion on the Mountain West side as well. But I think over the next 2 years, once that emotion goes away, everybody's going to look and they're going to see the numbers just don't make sense. It doesn't make sense for just a small number of schools to go over to the Pac. It doesn't. Really, the only thing that makes sense is if the Pac-12, if they can't get an invite to another power conference, the only thing that makes sense is to either join or merge with the Mountain West. I mean, and eventually everyone is going to get past their emotion and they're going to come to that logical conclusion just by looking at the numbers.
So before we wrap this up, Steve, I have to clear something up because you made a joke about the beer drinking.
Yes.
And now Bill and Pierce both think that's the deal. The deal is not to drink beer through a dirty sock. I just want to be very clear. That was Steve's idea. That's not what I agreed to. It was just eating a dirty sock.
Yeah, I mean,
and by eating, I mean just taking a nasty sock and putting it in my mouth, not literally digesting a dirty sock.
Okay. I'm pretty sure you said you were going to eat that.
No, that was your...
chew the dirty sock.
I'll chew it. Well, no, okay. Now, now they're going to want me... They're going to be drinking one and eating one. Now that's what we're going to have to do around
Either way, you're going to have that dirty sock in your mouth.
But I'm not. I'm not going to lose the bet, so it's all good.
But I'm saying, if you did lose the bet, either one of these scenarios, you're going to have that dirty sockness in your mouth. Would you rather it be all dry or with nice cold beer?
Okay, I got that.
All right, okay.
I get that. And I mean, because honestly, if I get a strong enough beer, I won't even know what I'm doing.
I mean, you could drink with a good Hofbrau. You could drink that through a pair of dirty underwear.
Whoa, Steve. Oh, now you've gone. Now they're going to want me doing it through underwear, for Pete's sake. We're not going that far, for crying out loud. All right, let's get to these last couple here. Okay, so JEA says more schools isn't always better than media deal money. Per school is most important, for sure. You got to, if you're going to bring in more schools, you also have to build that value so that you're building value. You're building, a bigger media deal, for sure. That makes sense. So Mr. Ed says the best number for Pac Mountain West is 16. I just lost one. Hawaii become an associate member. 8 teams play Hawaii. In Hawaii, 13th game, dark game, 13th. Yeah. I mean, UTSA, UNT, Rice, we did a whole episode on trying to rebuild a Pac. So that's very similar to what we did in that episode a little while back.
Yeah. So I can't remember if you just touched on this. JEH, his comment about the money per school.
Yeah.
Did you talk about that? Did you read that one?
Well, I just said it.
Okay.
But I didn't really talk about
it. All right. Well, he's spot on, and that is a huge consideration. Value per school, because you can get, if you have 8 teams or whatever, and you get a certain amount, and you have 16 teams, and you the amount might sound a lot bigger, but if it's not, commiserate per school, then maybe you're actually losing money. So he makes a good point there.
Yeah, so hey, with that, we thank you guys. I know JEH, Squeeze Money, they're both Beavs and Cougs fans. And, they admit it, and that's what we try to be. We're just trying to be realistic. Anytime and they know who we are. Like,
Yes.
they're on here. They know that us talking, call it negatively about the PAC, isn't us trying to bash the PAC. It's trying to be realistic about the finances, about where they actually can potentially end up. We both wish them the best. Again, we're going to be picking their games all season. We've been following them. That's why we have fans like JEH and Squeeze Money, and we're going to continue to follow them. This is not negative towards them at all. They have been through a ridiculous amount of craziness over the last, now we're here in June. So the last year has been so crazy for these two schools.
They got screwed. I mean, they got screwed due to mismanagement and all kinds of other problems that we've detailed at length.
And Bo Weevil says the ACC's poor management over decades has caused this mess as well. And he always reminds us, go Clemson.
Yes.
He is
Clemson.
Clemson. He's a massive Clemson fan. So, Bo, we thank you for watching. With that, Steve, I think we've gotten through everything. Getting a little long on this one. We had a lot to talk about. We did picks. That's what we like to do.
I saw Big Mama 69.
Oh, Big
chimed
Mama's
in.
back.
Yep.
Good.
So that's always good when we get Big Mama 69.
And I know the college football guy said he's sleeping. He had a rough day. I think his truck was in the shop. So he's got to get some shut eye so that he can get back on the road in the morning. So anyway, hey, we thank all of you guys for watching. Really a lot of fun. We love the interaction with the comments. We love the interaction with our mountain dwellers, as we say. This is just the beginning of the football season, just the beginning of the picks that we're going to be doing. Steve has been so kind and laid out kind of what we're going to be doing over the next 2 months in terms of our live episodes. We're looking to do predictions on the top 25 for college football. Of course, we're going to do where we think the Big Ten and Mountain West are going to be. We're going to talk about where we think the college football playoffs and who makes those and what that's going to look like. All kinds of fun predictions and fun stuff like that. And of course, we're staying on the ACC FSU cases. We're going to be following up on that. We got some hearings coming up again. So we'll be following that kind of stuff. And anytime there's news on the Pac-12, we always get an episode out on that. So we are busy guys. We do have some special guests coming up. As I said, we have a special guest to talk about the House settlement, the House NCAA settlement. Kevin Gold, who we had on before, talking about NIL stuff. He's going to come back on to talk NIL and the settlement. We're looking forward to that. He's also, as I said, going to give us our media values on this draft that we did. That's going to be a really cool video that we probably will get out after July 4th. Next week's crazy with the holidays and all that kind of stuff. So we'll probably do that later. It's going to be a longie, but we had some special guests, so that'll be a lot of fun. And I was able to confirm, Steve, this week, highly likely, we're going to have an athletic director from the Mountain West on the Big Mountain.
Love it.
Ask him some questions, maybe get into some comments about the scheduling agreement, some things with the PAC, and of course, we're going to have to talk about his school. So we do have that scheduled. Looking forward to having an athletic director here with the Mountain West. We can pick his brain on some of these items. We will have a live episode next week as well. We know it's July 3rd, right before a holiday weekend. Maybe I'll fill this up twice because I won't go to work the next day, and maybe I'll bring a sock along.
Yeah.
But I'm not losing that bet anyway. So hey, with that, we thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time on the Big Mountain.